Hi, my name is Core, and welcome to the Anitube interview. Each episode will be taking a look at one of the creators in the Anitube sphere, talking about their process and what they do. Today, I'm joined by Manime Matt. Say hello.
Hello, I am Manime Matt. Thanks for having me on, Core. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being on. So could you give us a little introduction to your channel? What kind of videos do you do? What's your style?
I'm Manime Matt. I am mostly a video essayist on, obviously, strictly anime. I mostly focus on not visual effects, but like more practical stuff. So a lot of people like to focus on like the writing and the feelings. I like cinematography and more of the concrete like film techniques. I have a degree in film, so that kind of helps back my whole entire channel. And I just try to do my best to keep up consistently uploading once a week and making videos that people don't hate me as much for. Easier said than done.
So I guess my first question would be, why anime? What is it? Was it specifically about anime that made you want to center your whole channel on that subject in particular?
Well, that's actually a really good question. So when I first started, I wanted to get into YouTube, like, cause I used to do YouTube a long time ago, and then I was like, I want to like actually like try to make a professional channel, and I've always been into anime for like most of my life, but I never got like super into it. And my friends and I, we were all like super kind of into Japanese culture and anime and all this other stuff, and I wanted to create a YouTube channel, and I was getting my film degree. And I was watching people like Nerdwriter and so on. And I was like looking for other creators that were like more anime focused, who wanted to talk about anime as their central topic, but in a style that Nerdwriter does it. And I looked and looked and looked and looked, and I only found like 2 or 3 channels. And I mean, just Mother's Basement was the first big one, then Digibro was the other one I found, obviously. And although I loved both of their content, I found it like really long. Like all their videos were like 20-30 minutes long. So my whole plan with this channel was to create a more bite-sized version that I guess takes a more gradual look at things, that I try to like to break things down in a more, not refined, but like more easy to understand and comprehensible way. I wanted to make it more mainstream, I guess, is my main point.
I see. So I guess taking it back a little farther, tell me a little bit about how you got into anime in the first place before you even had the idea to necessarily do videos talking about it.
Oh, well, that was pretty interesting. So in high school, I was trying to be one of the top smart kitty students. I was trying to get to a really nice college, and so I had pretty decent grades, but I was trying to get my my portfolio up. So I needed to create a bunch of clubs and like be president and do all this other stuff. And all my friends were super into this anime thing, and I thought it was a little weird. I was like, whatever. And they were like, we want to make an anime club. I'm like, sounds great. You guys have fun with that. So a year goes by and no one does anything. It's just hilarious. I'm like, are you guys serious? Like, you guys didn't make the club? I'm like, well, we're just all kind of like biding our time and trying to make sure everything's working out well. So I was like, you know what? I was like, do you guys want help making the club? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I ended up spending like 6 months watching a ton of anime so I could like properly research it. And then I founded the club, became the president of the club. And then it was funny, being the president of an anime club and not knowing much about anime was a terrible decision. They got me into this great show. They were like, you gotta look up this show. It's called Hentai. I'm like, okay. And yeah, that's how I was introduced to hentai. You know, I got trolled a ton. It was funny. I loved them so much. I loved that club. It was a blast. But then I really I fell for anime. I'm not going to lie. It took a little while to get past the style. But then it just grows on you, man. After a while, you just kind of really start to enjoy the style. And then you get to see people take it in more creative like ways. Like Mob Psycho 100 show coming out right now. If you watch the newest episode that just came out today, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. That's the first episode, since this will be coming out, I'm sure, a little bit later. It's just one of those things where it's like, you can't recreate this in actual film, like with real people. And I think that's truly incredible. So I like seeing anime that abuse the medium that's in and make something truly incredible.
I see. So taking advantage of their capabilities as animation to present things that would be impossible otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess moving forward, you mentioned earlier that you had a YouTube channel before you started this one. So what was that channel like, and did you maybe like overcome some missteps that you learned from with your new channel or anything like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. So it was a gaming channel I made back in high school, my freshman and sophomore year. And actually, looking back on it now, it was stupidly successful. It like for like a high school kid, I had like 4,000 subs. I had a pretty decent following. I just didn't know what I was doing though, so I was like really kind of lazy. I was very emotional with my channel, which I've toned back on for a lot for myself. And then it's just one of those things where you learn, not to say certain things, because if you feed it, it will grow. So I always fed negativity for that channel, so it was a really negative channel for me. So when I created this channel, it was all about, okay, feeding the positive side of the community, trying to be upbeat and happy and nice. And it's worked fantastically. I think I have a fantastic community. Most of my community is extremely nice.
What might you have taken away from your experiences with the gaming channel that you used to better yourself with your next endeavor?
Just mostly consistent upload schedule. I was very inconsistent on my other channel. I just randomly upload videos and didn't really put much work into them. So with this channel, I was like, I want to make it. At first, it was twice a week, which was nuts. But I eventually settled on once a week on this channel and consistently try to keep things as high quality as possible. I like to keep my content at least slightly above the bar for like the average viewers. I know some people will disagree with that opinion about my content, but I try my best to make it look pretty.
Right. Well, then, on the subject of making it look pretty, you do have a very distinct visual style and flow to all your videos that you've produced. Was there any particular manner in which you developed that style, or cues that you took from other creators, maybe not even in the field of Anitube itself, but just all throughout?
Yeah, actually, my style is something I take a lot of pride in. It really took me a long time to develop that style. I actually had a crisis in my first year. I was so angry because my style looked so similar to literally every other creator. So I took it upon myself to force myself to change and try different techniques and styles. And actually, Yusuf from Otaku's Versus, I credit him a lot to that style. I asked him for advice on how he developed his style. And he told me it was pretty easy. He's like, start creating videos, but he's like, use as little footage as possible. So use almost as little anime footage as possible. And at first, it was really hard. And, I still use a lot of anime footage in my videos. I just want to clarify that. But by doing that, it forced me to come up with a technique. So at first, it was like this black and white, very text-heavy, back and forth cutout style. And then slowly that evolved into like this paper blue style. That was a little bit... I wanted to steal a little bit of the style of... Who was it? Film Theory, Game Theory. He has like a paper back style to all of his videos where it feels like it's duct taped. But then I realized I wanted my style to be clean. I don't want it to be like glitchy, because I know a lot of people like that kind of look. So that's when I went with the clean kind of blue cutout style. And then since then I've just kind of been trying to master it, try to be as fast as possible with creating that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's been just kind of my strategy, just keep nailing it down, and then also not being afraid of changing my style and trying new techniques. Like originally I was really big into like having a bunch of meme characters, but after a while I realized that it might be better to switch to just my character to kind of make everything congeal more. And then when I did that, I really liked the change, and now it's permanent. So in all my videos, I very rarely use just like meme characters. I use the Manime character doing the proper reactions.
Right.
So it's just kind of developing that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna gonna lead off from that and say, what's your video making process itself like? Because I know for everyone else, everyone has their very distinct mindset when it comes to making a video, from very first beginning, getting the idea and then recording the script and, doing the editing, setting the music. I know, for instance, in my interview with Subtitled, he was very specific about how he likes to be very careful about his choice of music. Oftentimes he sets his music before even recording the script itself, or right after he's edited his audio, he sets the music. Or other creators, for instance, like I was talking with Mathwiz, and he's very engaged in the video editing side of video creation. So what's video creation like for you?
It varies heavily for me. It depends on what kind of video I want to make. Generally, so one of the biggest things I try to emulate is the point I'm trying to make. So if I'm trying to make a really like kind of funny, jokey video, like I'll do a completely different method than what I'll come at if I'm just doing an educational video. So for instance, this week is going to be something on Mob Psycho 100, which I view as purely educational. So in those videos, I mostly focus on my script and the editing process. So what I'll do is I'll have the idea and the technique I want to try to talk about, and then I'll spend a day or two writing the script and then refining it and trying to get the script to come together like in a pretty nice like way, and then on top of that have it be full circle. I like having my scripts try to be full circle. It's just a personal preference, at least for those educational ones.
Mm-hmm.
Second step is audio recording. I hate that process. I'm not a voice actor, but I'm like I try to perfect myself like I'm a voice actor, because you don't want to know how many times I re-record lines. Like I've probably gone up to 20 or 30 times just on my last video on a single line. I kept freaking botching. After that is the editing process, and usually the editing process is the part I take the most care in, because I actually really enjoy the editing process. I like just sitting down, focusing and cutting through everything and posting it and seeing how it looks rendered and so on. That's generally like my usual educational video. I don't like focus so much on the music. I like doing like kind of relatively like solid lo-fi hip hop mixes underneath to kind of carry the beat and carry the video, so it's still like energetic and you're paying attention, but not so much that it overpowers the video. I don't like having music that overpowers my video, unless of course I'm doing something like my best of 2018 video, where the entire video was written around soundtracks. So I made sure that each video had this cool section where the soundtrack would play, and then I do a montage that would match the soundtrack and lead into what I'm talking about, and then whenever the soundtrack would come up on topic, I'd raise the soundtrack up and down. Those videos are like hell on earth to like script out, because I have to properly like find the music first and then script around the music, which is pretty rough.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the actual like my full animated videos, which those take forever. Those are like, I write those out and then I have to like find the sound assets. If I don't have the sound assets, I have to make them myself, which is awful. I have to go back and like, I'm sounding so like annoyed and like peeved about this, but I love it. I love every second of doing this kind of shit. Like I say this every time. I'm like, oh, fucking, it's so annoying. I have to do this and that and this and that. But no one's like holding a gun up to my head. It's like okay, and then like next week I'm like whining and bitching because I didn't challenge myself enough in my next video.
Right. I totally see the angle you're coming from. Like, no one likes the struggle, but in itself, but the struggle at the end, that's always the most satisfying part. Once you see the product you've created.
And I think my biggest point is that if a video I didn't put a lot of heart or effort into does well, I get triggered. So it's like a double-edged sword. Whereas if your video like where I really put a lot of work into it and it does super well, that's like the best feeling in the world.
Right.
So, I like challenging myself. And I like seeing those videos do well, but usually it doesn't happen. And then like some bullshit meme video I'll make will get 100,000 views. Life of YouTube, bro.
Oh, no, I totally feel you. So I guess this is a question that I imagine a lot of people interested in getting started with doing analysis videos of really any kind have. and that's how do you come up with ideas? It's a kind of tricky subject because it's so sort of integral, but do you have a particular process or a mental approach when it comes to coming up with ideas?
So usually I have like a list. So I'll make a list at the beginning of every season. First off, what shows I want to cover. Like I know, for instance, obviously I desperately want to talk about Mob Psycho 100 at some point. Shield Hero is a give me. I have to talk about Shield Hero at some point. But I don't go into the idea of what I want to write. But if I know if like I'm super passionate about a show, I'll just start writing about the show. And eventually I'll find a point that I really want to focus on, and then I'll rewrite the entire script around that single point. And that's how I generally do videos when I'm struggling with coming up with an idea. But if you don't know what kind of show to talk about or what to talk about, I kind of just go to like what's the more popular stuff. So like My Hero Academia, like for instance, Bunny Girl Senpai was pretty popular recently. And then I try to watch through those shows, rewatch them, and then see if I can pull anything out of them and talk about them. And sometimes it's not good lessons. Sometimes it's bad lessons. Like sometimes it's stuff that I don't like about shows. And that's why a lot of people don't like me on YouTube is I love Hunter x Hunter to death. I love the show with all of my heart. I shouldn't be saying this because I'm going to get more death threats. But I've gotten death threats from making a video talking about why I love Hunter x Hunter but don't care for one of the protagonists. Not protagonists, antagonists. But right. I want to talk about it, and that's kind of important. And I think that's one of the things is that you have to write what you want to talk about, and when you're struggling with coming up with an idea, it's always good to sit down and just start writing about something you like, and eventually you'll find a point you want to cover.
I see.
I was all over the place. I don't know where the fuck I was going with that.
No, I agree. I think it's a good point that you just you need to talk about what interests you and what you think you have something to say about, even if that might not necessarily go over well with absolutely everyone. But I guess taking that a step further, I would say with making videos, is there a particular side to video making that maybe you don't enjoy quite as much, or rather that you just find really tricky? Like you've taken a bunch of different approaches with it, but you can't quite find that perfect workflow that you are still searching for with video making.
Here's my thing. So I like tricky stuff. That's one of the main. It's funny. One of my favorite parts about going into some of my more creative videos is sometimes I legitimately don't know how I'm going to do a shot. So, like, for my Crunchyroll Awards show video I did this year, I did not know how I was going to do that panning shot, the first shot, when I first booted up After Effects. I just fucked with it until it worked, and I love that part. I think my more hated part of editing or video editing is knowing certain parts of it that can't be made better or faster. And that's right. My biggest issue with that. It would be cutting audio. So obviously if I was a better voice actor or whatever, like that's one thing. But as someone who has to sit through and cut my audio, then send my audio through like a certain program so it all sounds better, it's one of those things that you can't really do faster. And I would say that's the part I hate the most, is that I know what I'm doing is the fastest I can do it at, and I just dread every second of it because there's no way I can think of to actually make it faster.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I love the challenge, but I don't love something that's mundane and just kind of like, okay. This is going to be an hour and a half of me just sitting here listening to cuts of audio that are almost identical and finding out which one's better and then sending it through.
Right, yeah. Audio editing, I don't think is most people's favorite task, especially when you're doing stuff like, cutting out breaths, or if you want to be really nitpicky about it, deciding which places like a breath enhances it, maybe. Stuff like that. I guess taking this a step further, so let's say you've made your video, you finished it, it's all scheduled, you've got, your thumbnail sorted out, and your description and tags, and the video goes live. What's the first thought that goes through your head?
I try to back away from it for like an hour. I try not to mess with it. So like I'll do my usual thing. Like when the video goes live, I'll post it to Twitter. I'll kind of promote it and like through a couple like my Discord and all the other stuff. And after that, I just back up because I know that you can like only do so much. And if you just sit there and stare at it and pray it gets a ton of views right off the bat, you're gonna end up disappointed. And so what I always try to do is I step away for an hour or more sometimes, and then come back and just check in. And then usually I'll go through the comments and read the comments. I'll try to heart at least one comment per video, especially if there's anything clever. I always heart it, and then I'll respond to any like questions in the comments that I can answer. And I just kind of like, just watch it. I just try not to get stressed out about views or how well the video is doing. Because sometimes, especially sometimes like a couple months ago, I was having this problem where a video I'd upload and it'd get maybe 500 to 1,000 views in 24 hours, which is generally pretty bad for me. Mm-hmm. And then within like two or three days, it'd still be at like 2,000 or 3,000. And then after that, it'd pick up and get like 20 or 30,000 views. It was like just out of nowhere. So that's kind of just one of those things I've learned to like sit back and just like, it's YouTube. There's nothing you can do about it. If YouTube likes you, it's going to promote the shit out of you. If it doesn't, there's nothing you can do about it. And you just have to kind of take a deep breath, understand you're just creating, and this isn't like, you're just creating for the sake of creating. You shouldn't expect too much out of it. And then take a deep breath and just try again next week.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
that's the only thing you can do is just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, basically.
So this is a question that I kind of like because it gives me a bit of insight into, I guess, what your approach or what you value or maybe what your aspirations are to some sense. And that is, if you had every resource and all the time in the world to make any type of video you wanted, what would it be?
More creative videos. Like I've been doing a decent bit. So like, Crunchyroll Anime Awards, stuff a lot like Yusuf and Otaku Versus. I would go down that road, I think. I would like to do a lot more creative comedy stuff. And then just kind of, maybe not even comedy, but I would like to make all my videos have almost no anime footage inside of them, but still talk about anime in a fun and engaging way, I guess.
Interesting. Oh, and this is a more specific question, but I'm curious if you've ever had an interest, because I know you use like your animated figure a lot in your videos. Have you been interested in perhaps trying out more integrations of like a mix of your animation and live action footage, and seeing where you can go with that?
I've actually experimented with that a little bit. It's just kind of hard and weird because I like to kind of draw that hard line between myself and my caricature on like Anitube. So like whenever you see the art of my character, that's Manime Matt. That's that character. And then there's me, who comes on at the end of the video, thanks you for watching it, and come follow me on Patreon and subscribe and share, like, comment. Just one of those things where I like the integration originally, but I still think on a personal level I like that line. There's a solid line between myself and that character I play, and I think a lot of the best YouTubers do have that line. I think Mudan TV is one of my favorites. I try not to spoil his line, but he's like really creative in the way he does his. There's a few other creators who I know who also do the same.
So I guess in branching off of that idea of like having a sort of distinction between, I guess, this pseudo character that you present as when you're creating your videos, and then like the actual you yourself, do you have a particular opinion on the territory that comes with creating videos like this and engaging with people in the comments, and how people can sort of form relationships that are rather one-sided? Do you have any particular leaning on that type of argument? I know it's pretty nuanced, but it's something
I see
worth
where you're
considering.
Going. Yeah, it's interesting. I find it kind of funny. A lot of people take my videos So here's the thing. So I get the comment dailies that says kill yourself. You know, it's like it's almost a daily thing. And those comments are the ones that scare me the least. It's the ones that say I love you, I worship you, and all the other stuff. Those are the ones that scare me. So it's just one of those things where it's I think some people have that trouble drawing that distinction or that line, and I think most of them are obviously jokes. They're just messing around or just playing with you. But I guess in a way it makes me kind of uncomfortable, which is why I also like that line I was talking about earlier. Is that like, so if I do end up ever bumping into these people IRL and they're like really obsessed with me or really want to kill me, that's gonna be my point. It's like, hey, look, dude, that's just a character online. And it is, you know, I'm not lying. I'm not pulling bullshit on them. It's like, you know, like, appreciate you, but, you know, I'm a real human being. That is a anime character who is an exaggerated form of my emotions, you know.
Yeah.
I guess that's my take on that
yeah, that's
a question.
Good distinction to make, I think. It's something that's really important to consider, I feel like, because YouTube is such an accessible platform that there's no one really teaching anyone, you know, what comes with this new side to social interaction, especially since all of it is so new. Taking it in a completely new direction, I feel like we've pretty thoroughly covered the side of, you know, just making videos in it of themselves and on that one front, but looking a bit outwards into the future and beyond, I would say, where do you see yourself in a year or two? How would you like to improve? Is there anything you'd like to do with your channel or beyond? Stuff like that.
I don't know. Like, originally this channel was only supposed to last for a year. That was my battle plan. It was like a college project I was doing, and then I got so obsessed with it, I decided to keep it going, and then it's grown to this size in the past, I think I'm 2 years now, 2.5 years. Yeah. So I haven't thought that far ahead. I don't know. I mean, my hope one day is obviously to make this my career. I would love to do this for the rest of my life and get paid enough to survive off of doing this. So that's my first and goal when creating content, not creating content, but when people ask me that kind of stuff, like, what do I plan to do with YouTube? As for my channel itself, I want to keep kind of refining my technique, keep working on trying to make slightly better content. I don't want to make it particularly longer. I just want to fit more detail and work into my content. I think the big example I want to bring up is the best of 2018 video I did, is that I felt like my writing was so great in that video, but since I screwed up and made it so long, it didn't do too well. And that still kind of hurts me, because I wanted to make that an 8 to 10 minute video, and I went way over and did 16 freaking minutes.
Right.
So I guess my biggest improvement I want to make is to my skills as a writer, because I never claimed to be a skilled writer, and I want to improve that so I can pull people in. And I also want to make my voice more distinct. I know my voice isn't particularly loud or crazy. I think my favorite example of this is Nux Taku. He's a good friend of mine. He's got this like great voice. He's just able to articulate everything he means, and you can really feel the emotion in his voice. And although people might think that's easy to get on a mic, it is super hard to get on a mic. Sometimes I'm just yelling to my microphone, and then I freaking play it back, and it's like, hey guys, what's up, Manime here? You know?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where you have to, like, I want to get better at that point. I don't know. I just want to overall improve the quality of my content and work on my weaknesses. You know, I understand that I have a lot of weaknesses in my style, my technique, and I want to improve those.
One thing I definitely would like to pick your brain on, as someone who you've maintained these weekly videos really well to an impressive degree, especially considering that this isn't your full-time job. You're doing this alongside actually working. Is how do you not get burned out?
It's a good question, bro. Actually, funnily enough, I'm taking a break next week. It's a whole planned break. My friends were really pushing for it. I don't know. I just always, I try to hold that weight over my head. I just try to remember that, some people, they're just naturally talented, and it just like great ideas drop from the sky, and then all of a sudden they can make whatever they want, and it's gonna look gorgeous, gonna come out great, and they don't have to worry about a goddamn thing. I'm not one of those people, and I've accepted that fact, and I know that the only way to actually make something creative is to force it out of my brain, and that doesn't change on a weekly basis. So some weeks, it's super easy. I get a good idea and I can just run with it. But other weeks, I really struggle to come up with a good idea. But I make those weeks my focus because I want to force myself to be able to come up with a good idea on the spot with a deadline every day, Saturday at 1 p.m. every week, that is. I think that the idea is to kind of come up with a deadline and, don't give in to any excuses, man. I'm fucking sick as a dog right now. Like, I feel like shit. But I'm still uploading this upcoming week. As a matter of fact, I have to get it done early because I'm going to Anime LA, which is a cool anime convention I'm going to. But, it's, my voice might sound a little raspy. Maybe my script won't be as good. But at the same time, I think a lot of my viewers will first and foremost appreciate what I'm making. And then on top of that, I feel like by doing this, I'm still creating more, and I'm getting more practice, and I'm forcing myself to write more and make more content. And maybe one day, keep slowly but incrementally improving my skills as a writer and as a creator on YouTube.
Right. I see. So taking it a bit out of yourself as an individual, I'm curious to hear, how do you feel about this community? You could be on Anitube, or maybe more broadly, the anime community, or perhaps just the shonen community. There's a lot of different niches that people fit themselves into. But I'd like to hear your perspective on whichever ones you identify more with.
I've always been kind of considered myself part of Anitube. And I'm really honored by that. I think Anitube is a fantastic community, and I'm glad I don't know if I'm not like one of the OG Anitubers. Like I'm obviously one of the newer up and coming kind of guys, but I'm glad I'm a part of it. And then getting to go to Anime Expo and going to all these conventions and meeting all these other huge Anitubers, you realize just how amazing this community is. Everybody is so incredibly nice. I've gotten to hang out IRL with Brian Explanation Point, and he was just friendly as can be. And then, Mathwiz, you've had him on here, got to hang out with him. We actually roomed together, and he was super cool. And then it's just neat to meet all these other people and be able to all kind of be able to talk about the struggles of being a creator and hey, how do you handle this? And what do you do if you're in this kind of situation? Jeff from Mother's Basement is always a great guy. I can, if I send him a DM and hey man, having trouble with this, what would you suggest? I always get a response from him. He's always willing to help. And that's most of the anime community. They're always so nice and helpful and appreciative. And I think that's something that's really great, because I know most communities aren't like that. Most communities are really closed off. But the Anituber community is just so open and awesome, and I'm honestly honored to be a part of it.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I guess I'd take it this way. If there was one thing that you could change, would you change anything? And if so, what would it be?
About the Anituber community?
Yeah, maybe there's some part of it that doesn't sit well with you. There's a sort of sentiment that you don't like that's growing in the community. Maybe it doesn't have to be a big thing, but just something that you might like to see different, either in the videos themselves or just the general attitude of people.
I think the only thing I would sort of change is this, and this isn't even to the whole Anituber community, it's to a very small portion of it, is this distaste for anime becoming mainstream. A lot of, not a lot, but a very small portion of the community who's very vocal seems to be really, really against the idea of anime becoming mainstream. And that would be my thing I would change. I would want everyone to agree that anime becoming mainstream is the best possible thing that could happen to anime. And that's why I personally push for it so much. I love pulling in people who are just casual viewers. Like half the people at my work originally only watched like Naruto, and they were like in high school when they watched it. And then now they're all into like, right now everyone's watching Mob Psycho 100 with me, and all, you know, having great conversations about real anime, because I wanted to pull them into this world, because there's so much amazing art that's being created, and people who are just a little bit nervous about taking that one extra step, and all it takes is a little push, and then you get a ton of more people to talk about these amazing shows. These amazing shows make a ton more money, and they can afford to make a ton more amazing shows. That's my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, you know, this sort of fear of it, you know, getting turned into something different is a little misguided, in my opinion, at least. I think it's all the better, you know, the more people that can enjoy this thing we love so much, right?
Exactly.
So I guess to sort of close this out with one final question, I guess I would ask you, what's your favorite video that you've done and why?
That's a good question. Let me look through my backlog. I have a lot of videos.
You do
really, really love. I gotta say, I guess for nostalgia purposes, and just how big of a challenge it was for me to make, even though I'm never making another video like this again, is my anime convention horror stories video for the Creepy Gamer. It was first off one of my all animation, no anime videos. So it was a ton of work. I created every single scene from scratch in that thing, and then on top of that, that was the first anime video I've made where I premiered all my character movements and reactions and so on. So I would have to go with that one as my favorite video currently.
I see. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's really interesting to hear your perspective. I love that, you know, everyone has a different approach and mindset, even to something as specific as, you know, making videos talking about anime on the internet. So I'm really glad that you could come on. And, well, take this opportunity, please plug all your stuff.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on, obviously, first and foremost. I really appreciate it. And, yeah, if you're interested in animes just in general, feel free to come over to Manime Matt on YouTube or my Twitter. I post on there sometimes. Actually, I've been pretty good lately. I've been posting a decent bit. And feel free to subscribe or follow me. Thank you so much for having me on.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Be sure to check him out. I've been your host, Core, and this was the Anitube interview. I'll see you guys next time.